Hi there, this is KHTS News Director Jade Aubuchon, and I'm here today with Santa Clarita Congressman Mike Garcia. How are you doing today, Mike?
Hey, Jade, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's always good to have you. It's been a little bit, but I hope you enjoyed your summer.
Yeah, it's going good. It's been a hectic one. We don't really get much downtime here between the campaign and the official side. It's been a whirlwind, but we've been able to enjoy the summer nonetheless. So
Good, I'm glad to hear it. Well, let's go right into it. I wanted to start by discussing your thoughts on the Inflation Reduction Act, which was, I believe, passed this last Friday.
yeah, unfortunately, it was passed. This is another one of these bills that is just a continuation of this sort of tax and spend mentality. It's kind of what's gotten California in trouble with our policies in the past of dialing up people's taxes and then coming up with new programs. And in this case, it's not only a tax increase, but they're using the proceeds of those tax increases to effectively hire more IRS agents, and to the tune of about a $52 billion tax hike against small businesses, and that basically yields ultimately an additional $80 billion to the IRS, which is the equivalent of about 87,000 new employees. And when you look at the type of folks that the IRS is going to be hiring, the vast majority, roughly two-thirds of those 87,000, are going to be in the auditing department, not in necessarily the taxpayer services department, but the ones actually doing the audit. So, the far left has been pushing for this agenda for quite some time, and this is a continuation of bills like Build Back Better, the America Rescue Plan, bills that sound good, when you read the name and you see all the money there, but the unintended consequences of these are very dangerous. This is going to be another massive tax hike on everyone. It's not just on corporations. Ultimately, that type of tax hike affects the average middle class American, lower incomes as well. And it's going to be on the back of the blue collars that these bills get paid, unfortunately. So, it's called the Inflation Reduction Act, and the irony is that this will only aggravate our inflation. This will only aggravate our nation's debt, and these are the two fundamental problems right now that most Americans are suffering from. And so I voted against it. Unfortunately, it will get signed into law here, this is something we need to keep fighting against.
Well, are there any benefits to anybody in your district through this bill, or is it all, as far as you're seeing, pretty negative?
Well, there's investments in what is effectively a significant chunk of the Green New Deal. So there's going to be tax credits given to folks who are purchasing, electric vehicles. And I drive an electric vehicle, but
Mm-hmm.
These credits are available to. I think the cutoff was any household making less than $300,000 will get a credit for an electric vehicle. And so, we don't need to be subsidizing the wealthy. We don't need to be subsidizing the purchase of cars for the wealthy right now. And there's some infrastructure improvements, but these types of improvements aren't going to be the ones that are actually incentivizing people to go to some form of alternate energy source for their vehicles. They're not going to be the type of investments that actually yield larger capacity on our freeways and decongest the traffic on our freeways. Ultimately, this is just going to be something, again, that the taxpayers are going to have to pay for. And this administration and frankly, Congress is not executing. We're not getting the products that we're being promised with these bills. And this is what's leading to the stagflation, which is effectively record high, 40-year record high inflation with no growth behind it. It's effectively 1979 all over again.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you for that. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm currently speaking with Congressman Mike Garcia, who represents our Santa Clarita Valley and the rest of. Are we still CA 25 or are we 27 now?
We Yes, we are. We're still CA 25 until the end of the year. The office that I'm running for is for California's 27th district, and that'll be effective in January. And we lose Simi Valley, but we still keep Santa Clarita right in the middle of the district.
Yeah, I was looking at the redistricting maps the other day because I'm having to relearn them, and I noticed they match up a little bit better with some of the county lines now.
Yeah, that's right. We had an issue with 25 where we had a part of Ventura County in the form of Simi Valley, and so that's been resolved. It did get a little tougher from a congressional campaign perspective for Republicans, but we'll prevail still, and happy to pick up Porter Ranch in Granada Hills, which is the city I was born in Granada Hills and
Mm-hmm.
raised in Santa Clarita, but so these are still very good areas that we picked up, and looking forward to representing them.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on a little bit, you are a local boy, and you recently were able to host a speech at the Reagan Library. Which, first off, I love that place. It's always so fun to see whatever new exhibits are coming in there. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your speech?
Yeah, no, what a huge honor, Jade. I mean, this is, it's kind of like our Graceland, Ronald Reagan. I grew up under Ronald Reagan as president from the age of 4 until I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
So that the museum itself is just beautiful. It's part of their Time for Choosing speaker series, where normally it's former cabinet members of presidential administrations, former vice presidents or senators, and so they let this little member of the House of Representatives come speak last week, and it was just a tremendous honor. And it was basically a speech, frankly, directed towards both sides of the aisle of how do we treat each other, and that we all kind of need to behave a little bit more like our founding fathers, with a little less hatred towards each other, a little more compassion, and better communication, but to really love the country above all things, to really put the country first, rather than sort of these blind allegiances to parties or activist agenda items first. And our founding fathers loved the nation before the nation even had a name, and they were willing to make those massive sacrifices so that we can have this beautiful country. And because of that, we're indebted to them, but we need to also behave the same. We need to put our loyalties back towards the Constitution, back towards the country, and not just to political parties or these machines around us. And so that was the message. It was about an hour long. So I encourage folks to look it up at the ReaganFoundation.org or ReaganInstitute.org. They have the video there from that. So if you've got an hour to listen in, it was a fantastic opportunity and a huge honor to be able to speak there.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to link to that once we do a write-up of this interview on our website, just to make it a little bit easier to find. Yeah, you got it. So, talking about a couple of other issues, it's been about a year since we pulled out of Afghanistan, and your office actually did a lot to help a lot of American citizens and our allies to get out of there. Where are we at now with that whole debacle?
Yeah, and so unfortunately, there's still over 100 Americans still there, and we were successful through my office, and Charles, who's my district director, led this effort, but we were able to get 116 Americans and some of the SIV partners, special immigration visa partners from Afghanistan out. And these were all people that were told and promised by this administration that they would be gotten out safely, and frankly, they were left hanging. They were left out to dry, and our office was able to help get them to the right locations to get them out through some folks that were still on the ground there. And that's been something I'm very proud of. But unfortunately, yes, the country still has over 100 Americans there, and part of the challenge is that this government, this administration, isn't allowing these Americans to bring their family members home. So these folks are being forced to decide whether to leave Afghanistan and to leave their wives and kids in Afghanistan, or to stay there. And so what we're pushing this administration to do is to allow those folks to come home, to also bring their families home and go through the visa immigration process, but to get them home first, and above all things, get them accounted for and get them safely out of Afghanistan. These folks are still being threatened, and it's hard to believe it's been a year, but it was a complete debacle, like you said, and we're coming up on the anniversary of the 13 service members that were killed. And it didn't have to be this way. This was a product of just really bad planning, and frankly, a commander in chief that was so focused on getting us out that he wasn't paying attention to how we got out and the manner in which we got out, to ensure that we not only got out safely, but we got everyone out that wanted to get out safely. And so Unfortunately, a year later, we're still having to deal with this, but we have a commitment to our fellow Americans that are stranded there, and to our SIV partners, the Afghanistan partners that fought alongside of us during this global war on terror. They deserve that commitment to be fulfilled.
Absolutely. I think everybody can agree with you there. Are there any current efforts that your office is still able to take part in?
It's getting increasingly more difficult, unfortunately. The State Department has basically shut down most of the individual congressional offices working to do it, and they've taken control of the lists of folks there. And so it's we're still, more than happy to assist in any way we can, but at this point, the executive branch is basically taken on this role exclusively, and it's not clear to me that they're actually doing anything anymore. And so it's very hard. We're pushing to get more oversight here and to actually get a better understanding of what exactly is going on through the State Department efforts. But they're not being as transparent and cooperative as they should be.
I'm sorry, that sounds difficult.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Well, let's talk about something a little bit lighter. I wanted to talk about one of your bills, I believe, that was recently passed, the Military Spouse Licensing Relief Act. We've talked about this a couple of other times, and everybody who's moved to a different state has had it where they realize things are a little bit different or something doesn't transfer over. But hearing that doesn't apply to like official professional licensing for military for a lot of people, including military spouses, was a little bit shocking. So why don't you tell me more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, this most military families, when they get orders from Virginia to California, for instance, they don't have to take their driver's license exam all over again. Their driver's license from their previous state is recognized and valid. This effectively does the same thing, and roughly a third of our military spouses work in some field where they have to have a credential and a license in some field, real estate agent, beautician, nurse, doctor, lawyer, teachers. And so what this does is it effectively allows the state that they are getting orders to, as long as they're on active duty and on orders, to recognize those credentials, and it doesn't require them to have to recertify and pay the money. And in some cases, that recertification process can be several months, if not over a year, and several thousands of dollars. So this basically opens it up so that our spouses can continue to work, the military spouses can continue to work, and this is a win-win for the communities too, because we do need teachers, we do need doctors and nurses, and there's a lot of these folks who are very qualified and excellent professionals in their field. They're not able to work because their spouse just got assigned to a new base, and that state doesn't recognize their credentials. So about 20% of our active duty is their spouses are unemployed, which is way over the national average, and this helps lower that number and bring in more tax revenue and more spending in the local communities. And so it will get through. I think this is part of now a larger bill called HR 5752, which is the Emergency Relief for Service Members Act, and it got through the Veterans Affairs Committee, and I'm confident it'll get through the House. The key is to get it through the Senate. But we're on the right side of this one. This is something that I've been championing since day one of coming into office, and it's going to make a huge difference for literally, hundreds of thousands of families nationwide.
Yeah, and I just did want to highlight, I'm sure everybody who's heard of you knows, you used to be in the military. Obviously, you've seen the effect of this firsthand. Was this inspired by what you saw while you were in the military?
Yeah, it was part of that, as well as meeting with, the local base commander up at Edwards Air Force Base, General Tiger. And he said, look, we've got qualified professionals living on base and they can't find jobs. And then, we've got the local areas of Santa Clarita and the Antelope Valley who don't have enough nurses, teachers, and doctors. So why can't we just get these folks recognized and allow them to go to work? And so it was a combination of that conversation and my experiences. And, the reality is that about a third of our enlisted service members are still living below the poverty line. And a lot of this is because their spouses aren't able to work in their field. It's a massive sacrifice to, imagine being told that you're going to have to go, work in Texas or Florida or Virginia or New York or Alaska, and you don't have your job anymore. That's the family's income's cut in half, and so this is something that should be fixable. You can make exceptions for some professions like attorneys that have very unique qualifications in each individual state. They are starting to make those types of exceptions so that lawyers have to still requalify and recertify because the laws are different in every state. So that's reasonable, but for the most part, if you're able to teach in Florida or Virginia, you should be able to teach in California as well.
Oh, absolutely. No, my mother's side of the family was military, and my grandfather had postings all over the world, and he saw a lot of that.
Yeah, yep, exactly right. So hopefully we can fix this problem and help them. The other major effort we're pushing is higher base pay for our active duty members. The junior enlisted ranks are making about $21,000 to $23,000 a year in base salary, which is
That's
just
nothing.
absolutely appalling. That's right.
Well, I certainly hope you have some success when it comes to that, but we will be keeping an eye on it.
Absolutely, as will we. We are making sure that we're hawking that, getting it through, and we're confident that it will eventually get through, and we'll continue to push it, hopefully this year.
Well, I wish you luck. Is there anything else that your constituents should be keeping an eye out for from your office?
No, just know that we're available. If any folks are working with federal agencies, whether it's the IRS, Social Security, the Veterans Affairs folks, that we're here to help. If you need help with a passport or a visa, anything along those lines, something that would normally take you several weeks, several months, we can sometimes do in a couple of days. So please reach out to our offices and let us help you if need be.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll be sure to put links to your office on our website. And thank you so much for joining us, Mike.
Thank you, Jade. I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and hope you stay healthy and stay well.
Hey, I'm doing my best. For all of our listeners out there, you'll be able to read more about Congressman Garcia and what he's been up to in Washington over on our website at hometownstation.com or on social media at KHTS Radio.